you ever seen something that made your blood run cold? A black dog where no dog should be? A clock that stopped at the exact moment someone died? An owl staring at you through the window at 3 a.m.? What if I told you these aren't coincidences? That throughout human history, across every culture and continent, certain symbols consistently appear before death, warning signs that the boundary between life and death is about to be crossed. Welcome to Eternal Enigma. Today we're decoding the 8 most powerful death omens, symbols that have appeared for millennia, announcing mortality before it arrives. These aren't superstitions, they're patterns too consistent to ignore. Prepare yourself, because once you know these signs, you'll never look at the world the same way again. Death has always announced itself, not through medical diagnosis or rational prediction, but through symbols, omens that appear in the days, hours, or even minutes before someone dies. Every culture possesses folklore about death omens. But what's remarkable isn't the existence of these beliefs, it's their consistency. The same symbols appear across civilizations that never contacted each other, separated by thousands of miles and centuries of time. Black dogs in Celtic Britain, spectral hounds in Germanic Europe, hell dogs in Greek mythology. The same omen, the same meaning. Modern psychology attempts to explain death omens as confirmation bias, pattern recognition gone wrong, or grief-induced hallucination. But this dismissal fails to account for cases where multiple witnesses see the same omen, where the symbol appears to people with no knowledge of the tradition, or where the timing is so precise it defies statistical probability. Parapsychology researchers like Dr. Rupert Sheldrake have documented hundreds of cases where animals, symbols, or phenomena appeared before deaths with no conventional explanation. His theory of morphic resonance suggests these omens might be accessing information fields that exist outside linear time, perceiving death before it physically occurs. We're going to examine 8 death omens, moving from the most common to the most disturbing. For each, we'll explore historical accounts, modern documented cases, and theories about what these symbols actually represent. Are they messengers from the afterlife, manifestations of collective unconscious, or glimpses of a deterministic universe where death is already written and occasionally reveals itself early? One warning before we begin: if you or someone close to you has experienced these omens, the knowledge might be disturbing. Death omens appear for a reason, and understanding them means confronting mortality in its rawest form. Time itself, marking death. One of the most frequently reported death omens is also one of the simplest: clocks stopping at the exact moment of death. Not running down gradually, not stopping hours later, but ceasing precisely when the person dies, sometimes to the minute, documented by medical professionals or witnesses. This phenomenon appears across cultures and time periods with disturbing consistency. In Victorian England, it was so common that families would note the stopped clock time as confirmation of the death moment. In modern times, despite digital clocks and atomic precision, the phenomenon persists. Digital displays freezing, watches stopping, even phone batteries dying at the moment of death despite being fully charged. One documented case from 2009 involved a hospital in Manchester where a patient's wristwatch stopped at 3:47 a.m. The nurse checking the time of death recorded it as 3:47 a.m. When the family arrived hours later, the wall clock in the room had also stopped at 3:47, despite having worked perfectly earlier. The hospital had no explanation, but the phenomenon extends beyond the death moment itself. Many people report that in the days or weeks before a death, clocks in the home behave erratically, running backwards, speeding up, or stopping repeatedly, only to restart on their own. It's as if time itself becomes unstable around impending mortality. Physicist theories about time suggest it may not be the linear constant we perceive. In relativity, time is malleable, affected by gravity and velocity. In quantum mechanics, time might not even be fundamental, but an emergent property of consciousness. If consciousness creates the experience of time, what happens when that consciousness is about to cease? Does it create temporal disturbances that manifest as stopped clocks? Paranormal researchers offer different explanations. Some believe the departing soul creates an electromagnetic disturbance powerful enough to affect electrical devices and mechanical systems. Others suggest that stopped clocks are messages, the deceased or approaching death attempting to mark the moment, creating a physical anchor point for the transition. There's also a symbolic interpretation. Clocks represent measured, linear time, the framework of living existence. When death approaches, it exists outside that framework. The stopped clock symbolizes the cessation of personal time, the exit from the temporal stream into timelessness. What particularly unsettling is the phenomenon of clocks stopping before death occurs. Multiple accounts describe family members noticing a stopped clock, feeling inexplicable dread, and learning hours or days later that someone close to them died at that exact time in a distant location. This suggests the stopped clock isn't caused by the death. It's a warning of death not yet occurred, as if information is traveling backward through time. One haunting account from 1975 describes a woman whose grandfather clock stopped at 11:43 p.m. She felt compelled to call her estranged father despite their lack of contact. He didn't answer. The next morning, she learned he'd died in a car accident at 11:43 p.m., hundreds of miles away. The clock had never malfunctioned before and never did again. The witching hour's dark twin. While 3:33 a.m. isn't universally recognized as a death omen across all cultures, its modern emergence as a consistent pattern before deaths is undeniable and deeply unsettling. Across online forums, paranormal databases, and anecdotal collections, people report waking at exactly 3:33 a.m. in the nights or weeks before a death, their own near-death experience or someone close to them dying. The number 3 holds significant occult meaning across traditions. In Christianity, 3:33 is seen as a mockery of the Holy Trinity, the inverse of divine perfection. Some interpret 3:33 a.m. as the devil's hour, halfway between 3 a.m., the witching hour, opposite of Christ's death at 3 p.m., 4 a.m. Numerologically, 3 repeated emphasizes incompleteness, imbalance, and transition. But the phenomenon isn't limited to 3:33 a.m. Many report the number appearing on digital clocks throughout the day, 3:33 p.m., seeing 3.33 on receipts, or noticing 3:33 on license plates repeatedly in the days before a death. It's as if the number is following them, marking them, counting down. One documented case from 2017 involves a nurse in Oregon who began waking at exactly 3:33 a.m. every night for 2 weeks. She felt increasing dread but couldn't identify why. On the 14th night, she woke again at 3:30 and felt compelled to check on her elderly mother in the next room. She found her mother had stopped breathing. Resuscitation was successful, but medical examination revealed her mother had been minutes from death. The 3:33 waking stopped immediately after. Sleep researchers note that 3:04 a.m. represents the deepest part of the circadian low. When body temperature drops, cortisol begins rising, and the boundary between sleep and waking is thinnest. Some parapsychologists theorize this creates a window where consciousness is most receptive to information from non-ordinary reality. Premonitions, spirit contact, or temporal information bleed. The pattern extends to death times themselves. Mortality records show a slight but statistically significant clustering of deaths around 3:04 a.m., often attributed to physiological factors, lowest heart rate, blood pressure, and body temperature, making the body most vulnerable. But some researchers propose the reverse, that 3:33 appears in premonitions because it's genuinely when many deaths occur, and consciousness is somehow perceiving this probability ahead of time. Carl Jung's concept of synchronicity, meaningful coincidence without causal connection, applies here. When someone repeatedly sees 3:33 before a death, Jung would argue this isn't prediction but a causal correlation, the universe reflecting internal psychological states through external symbols. The unconscious mind, sensing approaching death through subtle cues, projects this awareness as the symbolic number. Modern chaos magicians and practitioners of law of attraction offer a darker interpretation that focusing on 3:33 as a death omen might actually create the connection, turning the number into a self-fulfilling prophecy through focused belief and expectation. By fearing 3:33, you create the energetic resonance that attracts death-related events. What's particularly disturbing about the 3:33 phenomenon is its digital age specificity. Before digital clocks, this pattern couldn't have existed in the same way. Does this mean the omen is entirely modern, or has death adapted its warning signs to contemporary technology, ensuring the symbols remain readable to each generation? Those who've experienced the 3:33 death omen consistently report one detail: the feeling accompanying the sighting is never neutral. It's dread, certainty, hollow recognition, as if some deep part of consciousness knows exactly what the number signifies, even if the rational mind dismisses it. The black-winged messengers. Few death omens are as universally recognized as crows and ravens appearing in unusual numbers or behaviors. Across Celtic, Norse, Native American, and Asian traditions, these corvids serve as psychopomps, guides for souls transitioning from life to death. The omen isn't simply seeing a crow or raven, which is common enough. It's specific patterns, a murder of crows, the collective term itself is telling, gathering around a home with no food source present, a raven repeatedly tapping on windows, or most ominously, finding a dead crow or raven on your property, interpreted as death, claiming its messenger before claiming its target. Norse mythology features Hugin and Munin, Odin's ravens representing thought and memory, who fly across the world gathering information, including knowledge of who will die in battle. Celtic mythology depicts the Morrigan, goddess of death and war, appearing as a crow on the battlefield to claim souls. This archetypal connection between corvids and death isn't cultural accident, it's recognition of actual behavioral patterns. Crows and ravens are among the few animals that understand death. Research has documented crows holding funerals, gathering around dead corvids, calling in specific patterns, and appearing to grieve or learn from the death. They recognize individual human faces, remember those who've threatened them, and can communicate danger across generations through corvid culture. So when corvids gather around homes before human deaths, are they predicting death, or simply recognizing the same biological and energetic markers they use to identify dying corvids? Some researchers propose that the dying emit subtle chemical or electromagnetic changes that corvids, with their exceptional sensory systems, detect before humans do. One documented case from Wales in 2003 describes a family besieged by crows. 20 to 30 birds gathered on their roof and in surrounding trees for 3 consecutive days, cawing incessantly but leaving when approached. On the 4th day, the family's teenage son, who had shown no signs of illness, collapsed from an undiagnosed heart condition and died despite emergency intervention. The crows vanished the moment paramedics arrived, never returning. The specificity of numbers holds meaning in folk traditions. A single crow or raven is sometimes considered neutral or even lucky. 2 might signify joy, but 3 crows together are universally interpreted as death approaching. 7 crows is catastrophic, multiple deaths or disaster. These number associations appear across unconnected cultures, suggesting either universal human pattern recognition or actual significance in corvid behavior. More disturbing are accounts of crows appearing inside homes, flying down chimneys, entering through open doors, or most unsettlingly, appearing inside closed spaces with no entry point. One 1920s account describes a raven found sitting on a dying man's chest, inside a locked room with no explanation for its entry. The man died within the hour. The window-tapping behavior is particularly prevalent. Multiple cultures interpret a bird, especially a crow or raven, tapping on glass as death knocking, requesting entry. Victorian superstition held that allowing such a bird inside would hasten death, while refusing it entry would anger death itself, potentially causing a more difficult passing. Native American traditions view corvids more ambiguously. Some tribes see them as tricksters rather than death omens, creatures that blur boundaries between worlds, carrying messages between living and dead. In this interpretation, crows appearing before death aren't warning of mortality, but offering to guide the soul through transition, a comfort rather than a threat. What science confirms is that corvids possess exceptional intelligence, problem-solving abilities that rival great apes, and long-term memory spanning years. If any animal could recognize patterns humans miss, the biological signatures of approaching death, the energetic changes in a home where someone is dying, corvids possess the cognitive capacity. The phenomenon isn't limited to natural deaths. Accidental deaths, suicides, and murders have all been preceded by unusual corvid behavior, suggesting they're responding not just to biological decline but to something more fundamental, perhaps the soul preparing to depart, creating disturbances in subtle fields that corvids perceive. The spectral guardians of death. Perhaps no death omen is more terrifying or universally recognized than the black dog, an enormous, spectral canine with glowing eyes, appearing at crossroads, outside homes, or following individuals marked for death. This entity appears in virtually every European culture under different names: the Black Shuck in England, the Barghest in Yorkshire, the Mahdi II in the Isle of Man, the Church Grim in Scandinavia. These aren't ordinary dogs. Witnesses consistently describe impossible features, size far exceeding any natural dog breed, often as large as a calf or small horse, eyes that glow red, green, or yellow, described as like coals or burning, complete silence, no panting, no sound of paws on ground, moving as if floating, and most disturbing, the ability to vanish instantly when approached or observed too directly. The black dog phenomenon is so consistent, it became British folklore's most documented supernatural entity. In 1577, during a thunderstorm in Bungay, Suffolk, a black dog allegedly burst into a church during services, killing 2 parishioners and leaving burn marks on the door that remain visible today. The same entity reportedly appeared at a church in Bluffburg the same day. killing 3 and leaving claw marks on the door. Modern sightings continue. A 2016 report from a truck driver in Cornwall describes a massive black dog with red eyes standing in the middle of the road at 3 a.m. He swerved, felt the vehicle pass through the creature rather than hitting it, and looked back to see nothing. 2 days later, he learned his father had died at approximately the time of the sighting, hundreds of miles away. The black dog's role varies by tradition. Sometimes it's a warning: appear, alert the person to coming death, then vanish, giving them time to prepare. Other times it's a psychopomp, guide accompanying souls from life to death. Most ominously, some traditions describe it as a reaper, its appearance not warning of death but causing it, marking the person as claimed. Celtic mythology connects black dogs to the wild hunt, a spectral procession of hunters and hounds racing across the sky, collecting souls of the dying. Hearing the hunt or seeing its hounds meant death within the year. This connects to Norse mythology's Garmr, the blood-stained hound guarding Hell's gates, and Greek mythology's Cerberus, guardian of the underworld. The consistency across disconnected cultures suggests either archetypal psychological phenomena or actual entity. Jung would argue the black dog represents the shadow self, feared aspects of unconscious that must be faced before death, integration of all one has denied, personified as frightening guardian. Paranormal researchers propose black dogs might be tulpas or egregores, thought forms created by centuries of collective belief and fear, given autonomous existence through sustained human consciousness. Each sighting feeds the archetype, making it stronger, more capable of manifesting. The Crossroads Association is particularly significant. Crossroads represent decision points, boundaries between worlds, liminal spaces where normal rules suspend. In hoodoo and various folk magic traditions, crossroads are where deals with devils are made, where spirits congregate, where one world bleeds into another. Black dogs appearing at crossroads might be boundary guardians, appearing when someone approaches the ultimate boundary, life and death. What's most unsettling about black dog omens is the aftermath. Most who see them and survive report the experience never leaves them. The image burns into memory with unusual clarity, accompanied by bone-deep certainty that they've encountered something fundamentally other, something that exists at the intersection of death and reality. Protection folklore varies. Some traditions hold that black dogs cannot cross running water, salt lines, or holy ground. Others suggest speaking prayers or carrying specific herbs, rowan, vervain, or iron. But many accounts emphasize that once the black dog appears for you, protection is irrelevant. The mark has been made, the appointment with death recorded. One final disturbing detail. Several accounts describe people seeing black dogs with unusual sympathy or sadness in their glowing eyes, as if the entity itself feels compassion for the marked individual but cannot alter what must occur. This suggests consciousness, emotion, and perhaps reluctant duty rather than mindless supernatural predator. The silent wings of death. While black dogs dominate European death omen traditions, Native American, Celtic, and global folklore universally recognize owls, particularly white owls, as harbingers of death. Unlike dogs that inspire terror, owls carry quieter dread, silent wings delivering silent messages. Native American traditions nearly universally associate owls with death. Apache, Navajo, Lakota, and dozens of other tribes teach that hearing an owl call, particularly near your home or calling your name, means death is approaching. Some traditions specify that if the owl calls 3 times, death is certain. Others distinguish between owl species: barn owls for natural death, great horned owls for violent death. The white owl specifically carries particularly ominous meaning. Its pale coloration suggests ghost, spirit, or death itself taking visible form. Seeing a white owl during daylight, when owls shouldn't be active, dramatically amplifies the omen's severity. One documented case from the Cherokee Nation describes a family repeatedly visited by a white barn owl that perched on their porch railing 3 nights consecutively, staring through the window at the grandmother. Tribal elders were consulted. The grandmother died peacefully in her sleep on the 4th night. The owl never returned. Celtic traditions similarly associate owls with death, but with more ambiguity. Owls serve the Cailleach, the crone goddess of death and winter, but also represent wisdom and transitions. An owl appearing might indicate death, or simply major life change, ego death, rather than physical death. What science reveals about owls makes their death association eerily appropriate. Owls are apex predators with near-silent flight, able to approach prey without detection. Their rotating heads and enormous eyes create unsettling appearance. Their calls, screeches, screams, and hoots that sound remarkably like human cries trigger primal fear responses. But the death omen isn't just about fear. It's about specific behaviors. An owl landing on your home's roof, an owl tapping or scratching at windows, finding a dead owl, or most ominously, an owl entering your home. All these signify death's approach with varying urgency. A 2008 account from Ireland describes a family's terror when a barn owl flew down their chimney into the living room during dinner. Despite attempts to remove it, the owl perched on the mantel, remaining for several hours before finally leaving through an opened window. The family's teenage daughter died in a car accident 3 days later. The window phenomenon parallels crow omens. Birds tapping on glass represent death, requesting entry. Refusing entry might delay death, but causes restless presence. Allowing entry accepts death's claim. Victorian superstition held that birds, especially owls, inside homes meant death would occur within walls, not elsewhere. Ornithologists note that owls are deeply territorial, living in specific hunting grounds their entire lives. When owls appear in unusual locations, suburban areas lacking prey, urban environments, or inside human structures, it represents behavior outside normal patterns, suggesting something other than natural owl behavior is occurring. The spiritual interpretation frames owls as messengers from the spirit world. Their nocturnal nature, association with darkness, and role as predators connect them symbolically to death's realm. When death needs to communicate with the living, warn them, prepare them, or simply mark them, it sends its messenger, the owl. Some traditions distinguish between owls heard but not seen versus owls seen directly. Hearing an owl call might be a general death in the community or distant family. Seeing an owl, especially making eye contact, means the death is immediate family or oneself. What's particularly unsettling is the timing precision. Multiple accounts describe owls appearing, the observer feeling dread, and deaths occurring within specific time frames. 3 days for 3 calls, 7 days for daytime sightings, immediate for owls inside homes. There's also the phenomenon of owls appearing after death, interpreted as the deceased's spirit taking temporary animal form to visit loved ones, deliver final messages, or ensure family is okay. This post-death owl sighting provides comfort rather than terror, suggesting the owl's meaning shifts based on timing relative to death. Modern paranormal investigators note that owl sightings cluster around homes where deaths later occur, appearing weeks or even months beforehand with increasing frequency as death approaches. This pattern suggests either the owl is drawn to energetic changes around the dying or that death's approach creates environmental changes that attract natural owls, making the omen potentially observable through biological rather than supernatural mechanisms. The most terrifying omen of all death omens, none is more universally feared or consistently fatal than seeing your own doppelganger, an exact duplicate of yourself, appearing when you know you're the only you present. This isn't reflection, photograph, or video. It's encountering yourself as if you're 2 separate beings occupying reality simultaneously. German folklore coined the term doppelganger, double goer, for this phenomenon, but the omen appears across all cultures: Irish fetch, Norse vardoger, Finnish etiäinen. Every tradition recognizes that encountering your double means death is imminent. Unlike other omens that might be warnings, doppelganger sightings are considered absolute, unavoidable announcements of approaching death. Historical accounts are numerous and disturbing. Catherine the Great of Russia reportedly saw herself sitting on her throne while she stood observing. She ordered guards to shoot the double. She died days later. Queen Elizabeth I saw herself lying on her deathbed before actually taking to that bed, never to rise. Abraham Lincoln saw a double reflection of himself in a mirror, one normal, one pale and death-like, and interpreted it as omen of death in second term, which proved accurate. But doppelgangers aren't limited to famous figures. Ordinary people report the phenomenon with consistent details. The double appears exactly as the person currently looks, wearing identical clothing. Sometimes it mimics actions. Other times it stands motionless, staring. Occasionally it speaks, delivering cryptic messages or warnings. One contemporary account from 2014 describes a woman grocery shopping who saw herself 3 aisles away. She approached, calling out, assuming someone resembled her. The double turned, made eye contact, smiled sadly, and walked around a corner. When she followed seconds later, the aisle was empty with no exits. She died in her sleep 6 days later from an undiagnosed heart condition. The phenomenon isn't limited to self-observation. Friends, family, or strangers sometimes report seeing someone in locations they couldn't physically be. The person appears normal, interacts briefly, then vanishes. When contacted, the actual person has alibi, proving they were elsewhere. These sightings consistently precede deaths. Theories about doppelgangers range from supernatural to quantum. The supernatural interpretation: doppelgangers are spirits of the soon-to-be dead, beginning to separate from the living body, occasionally visible in physical reality as the boundary weakens before final death. The psychological interpretation draws from dissociative experiences. Severe stress or neurological events might cause perception of self as external, creating hallucinatory double. But this doesn't explain cases where multiple witnesses see the doppelganger, or when the double appears in locations the person isn't present. Quantum physics offers speculative explanations. Many worlds' interpretation suggests infinite parallel realities. If consciousness exists across multiple realities simultaneously, perhaps approaching death creates quantum instability where alternate versions briefly bleed through, becoming visible as doubles. The time slip theory proposes that doppelgangers are the person's future corpse or death moment consciousness, visible through temporal bleed. Death creates such significant energetic disruption, it sends echoes backward through time, manifesting as the double. Perhaps most disturbing is the bilocation explanation, extremely rare mystical phenomenon where consciousness genuinely occupies two physical locations simultaneously. Saints report this as miracle. Occult traditions teach advanced practitioners can create tulpas of themselves, but spontaneous involuntary bilocation, particularly visible to the person themselves, indicates consciousness destabilizing, preparing to fully exit physical form. Protection against doppelganger omens is considered impossible in folklore. Seeing your double means death has already claimed you. Physical death hasn't occurred yet, but the spiritual mark is made. Time remaining varies, hours to weeks, but outcome is certain. Some accounts describe people who saw their doppelgangers and survived, but always with caveat: they experienced near-death, serious illness, accident or crisis that should have killed them but didn't. The doppelganger marked them. Death approached, but something intervened. They lived but changed, haunted by memory of encountering themselves, knowing they met death face to face and somehow escaped. The ultimate terror of doppelganger omens: it's meeting death, wearing your face, confronting your own mortality in most literal, visual form. Every other omen involves external symbols, animals, smells, numbers. Doppelganger is you, the corpse to be walking, death personalized, individualized, looking at you with your own eyes and communicating without words. This is what you'll be: absent, gone, just an image without substance. When death announces itself. We've explored 8 omens: stopped clocks, the number 333, phantom smells, corvids gathering, dreams of the deceased, black dogs, owls, and the doppelganger. Each represents death making itself known before arrival. But here's the question that haunts every investigation into death omens: are these warnings or announcements? Can seeing the omen change the outcome? Or does the omen appear precisely because the outcome is already determined?